Hello, everyone. Welcome to Snap Take. It's Glazer of Snap Judgments, the official Marvel Snap Zone podcast. And today we have our weekly giant look at the whole spotlight caches and different things you can do with the new card of the week. For this week, the new card is the Season Pass card. So we're going to take a look at why you should be buying the Season Pass, along with Galactus, Nimrod, and Spider-Ham. This should be your one-stop shop, everything you need to know for the week. Before we get to that one-stop shop, please hit that subscribe button. I'd really appreciate the support. We bring you at least 2 new decks every single weekday. Today we have like 6 brand freaking new decks for you. We've got Daken decks, we've got proven Galactus, Nimrod, and Spider-Ham decks for you. So every single weekday we bring you at least 2 new decks. Very, very often more than that. We get you the best decks in the meta before the meta catches up so that you can snap earlier, get extra cubes without your opponents knowing what you're doing, get infinite, get your infinity borders, reach your goals in Marvel Snap before anyone else. We had the biggest giveaway in Snap history. Just so you know, we gave away what amounted to 8 season passes. Almost everyone has claimed it. We're still giving away the 3 Snap Zone premiums and the Death Becomes Her bundle. Oops, sorry. We are on to Daken. Daken is a Series 5 season pass card, i.e. if you don't buy him, he will move into Series 5, which means you are either spending 6,000 tokens on him, far more in terms of cost than $9.99, or you are opening him in a Spotlight Cache. There's no word on how soon he will be in a Spotlight Cache. One would assume generally about 2 to 3 months. So if you want him, buy him. He is a 3/4 with the on reveal, add a Muramasa shard to your hand, and there's no point in reviewing Daken without the Muramasa shard. When this card is discarded or destroyed, double Daken's power. That's pretty good, right? What that means is if you can consistently discard or destroy that shard, you have a 3/4 if you're going the destroy route, 8. A 3/4/8 are both really great strategies. 3 is super premium. A 4/8 is just good. So if you're going the destroy route, you want to make sure you're getting something extra out of that. That is the look, a 4/8 is a decent sized Darkhawk. That's the 5/8 we've seen the power of with Legion, with Vision, with previously Black Bolt. So like 8 power is a magic number. He's going to likely be best at 8. We're not going to entirely focus with the just 8 power decks on him today. We're going to look at some, but we're not only going to focus on that. We want to be able to consistently get him to 8 with the upside of more. I think that upside is key. That upside is the key to stealing cubes because your opponent won't know whether you have 8 power there or 16 power. And I think that's going to be the key to winning a lot of games with this card. We will have 3 season passes for Daken. We've got the Hip, which is a rare that is coming out 8/15 straight up. That's the one I want. The second that pops up in my shop, that one's mine. I love Den Hips. I think that one is especially good. We've got the season pass, which is a Mech Daken. I don't like this one as much, to be completely honest. I think it's cool, and look, it's free if you get the season pass, so I'm not against it. And then we've got a Sandoval super rare coming out on 8/8. That is today. That one is a Horseman of Apocalypse Wolverine thing. It doesn't scream Daken enough for me to really want. I'm all about that Hip, but hey, whichever one you think is best, go for. We have 3 Spotlight caches. These are the Spotlight variants. They are Galactus, Nimrod, and Spider-Ham. We'll talk more about these cards in particular later. It's worth noting that Galactus is a big bad, which means he will never be 4,000 tokens. Sorry, excuse me, 3,000 tokens. He's always going to be the full 6. So he's a really good card to open in Spotlight caches. However, he's not super meta right now, so there's a balance here. Nimrod is one of the better cards in the meta, at least unless the Destroy season makes Armor and Cosmo be everywhere. However, he's a former season pass card, so hopefully you have him. You got to be buying the season passes. There's too much value to him. But also, in addition to that, he's Series 4, so you can get him for 4,000 tokens. Same thing for Spider-Ham. This is a really cool bit of Spider-Man art, despite the cannibalism, eating with his toys of Spider-Man and Ghost Spider, having a nice little picnic. Spider-Ham is one of the top 3 to 4 2-drops in the game. This is a absolutely phenomenal card, but again, 3,000 tokens. Do you want to be opening caches without a new card here without 3,000 tokens? And I'm just going to get this out of the way. Unless you're dying for Galactus, this week is almost certainly a skip. You want to be using your tokens on Series 3 cards where Series 4 cards where possible tokens go for Series 4 cards, and Galactus will never be a Series 4 card. So it's not terrible to open for Galactus, even if he's not the best right now. But either wait for Nimrod and Spider-Ham to fall down a series, or spend the 3,000 tokens now and use your Spotlight caches on Series 5 cards, which will be 6,000 tokens, so you're getting fundamentally double the value out of those caches. The synergies of Daken. First is nice and easy. He costs 3, so he's good with Surfer. 3/4s aren't amazing, but a 3/10 coming out of Surfer, that's bigger than Maximus. Fantastic. He's got the ways to double up on his shards, which are Wong, Moon Girl, and Absorb Man. There's a few others, but those are the major ones. Wong, Moon Girl, and Absorb Man will get you extra shards or extra uses out of shards. If you play Daken on Wong, you get 2 shards in hand. Moon Girl can double the shards in your hand or double the Daken, so you can get double the shards. And if you go a nice curve is Daken into Absorb Man, and then you have 2 shards in hand. We also have ways to discard the shards. I think the most consistent, there's obviously a lot of discard cards in the game. The most consistent are Colleen Wing, because that's going to discard the lowest cost. Very likely to be that 1-cost shard. MODOK, which just discards everything. And the end of the month, we get Silver Samurai, a 4/5, that discards the lowest power card from both you and an opponent's hand. Your lowest power card, unless you're full of rocks, and it is worth knowing that rocks are a real thing. And the shard has 1 power. Silver Samurai will otherwise be great. Let's see where the meta is and how much Rock Slide we have around at that point. The destroy cards are Carnage, Venom, Deathlock, and Killmonger. Those are the best ways to kill this shard. We've also got upcoming Lady Deathstrike, who will kill a shard because she kills anything with lower power than her. She's a 5/3 that kills anything with lower power as an on-reveal. If the shard is there, then she will kill it, giving the extra power. Because Carnage, Venom, Deathlock, and Killmonger work, Deadpool, Wolverine, Nova, Bucky, and the upcoming X-23 also work well with this shard. They fundamentally say, okay, now if I'm going to destroy things, now I can go all in. Finally, we have Forge, Hulkbuster, and Shuri. Those are ways to put more power on Daken himself. The shard doubles his power. It doesn't matter where he got more power. I'm using Hulkbuster in most of the builds today. My gut says I think Forge is better, and Forge is in line for a buff. But they just pumped Hulkbuster, right? So our next OTA is next week, I believe. I don't expect it to be in the patch. I expect it to be in the OTA. I expect Forge to give +3 instead of +2, and then suddenly be a meta card with Daken to double his power. Pumping Hulkbuster, not Forge, seems weird, but that curve seems really, really nice. You go Forge into Daken, and now you have as of right now, a 3/6. That's going to become a 3/12 when you destroy or discard that Murmosa shard. That's great. Shuri works well. That makes it a 16 immediately the first time the Murmosa shard is killed, and Hulkbuster will make Daken originally a 3/9 and then a 3/18, which are all bonkers stuff. We're going to feature a few different decks for Daken. I have literally 1,000 ideas. If you want some more decks than the ones we're about to take a look at, come to the Marvel Snap Zone Discord. There's a channel called Podcast Chat with the Host. The link to the Discord is in the description to this video every single day. Join us. Talk to us about these cards. The first thing I want to do is Deadpool Destroy. I really want America Chavez in this deck, but I couldn't quite fit it. This deck is fundamentally all about killing Deadpool, and it gets better in a couple weeks when X-23 comes out, because this deck really wants X-23 for the extra gold. Extra gold. That's funny. Extra energy. Magic gives you an extra turn to do all of your killing shenanigans. I like this deck because Hulkbuster has 2 really good targets here. It can go on Daken to make that 3/18 for the end of the game, or it can go on Deadpool and just keep getting doubled. Either one of those works great. Obviously, if you're playing Hulkbuster on Daken, you have to be careful of Shang-Chi. That's immediate Shang bait. If you're playing it on Deadpool, you have to be careful of Shang and Killmonger. However, the 7th turn here is really good because you can get a null out on turn 6, right? And then if they do manage to kill one or both of these cards later, you are just powering up your null, and then you've got your death as well as a powerful card. So you've got all these options here. The rest of the deck is fairly similar. A reasonable curve would be something like Deadpool into Carnage into Daken into Magic and Shard, right? Into a Killmonger or Venom. etc., etc. And then we're just dropping big things, right? Like as many turns as we can. This deck, I'm pretty sure, look, a version of this that was running Wolverine and Daken spot was good. So I'm assuming that the version that runs Daken instead, because he's better than Wolverine, is going to be better. Guarantees? Of course not. Never in this game, right? But I think this is going to be a really solid home, and this is going to be one of the decks of the meta, except that I fully expect Armor and Cosmo to start popping up everywhere. And as Armor and Cosmo pop up everywhere, this deck will fall in popularity because it doesn't really have a way to answer that. And that kind of answer doesn't really exist. I guess you could run Echo, but you're running all this destroy stuff. So how often is Echo really going to survive long enough to do what you need her to? Next up, we've got Symbiote Surfer. Look, the Nimrod here should probably be Sarah. Let's get that out of the way at the top. The Nimrod should probably be Sarah. I wanted to lean a little more into the Destroy package, but if the Nimrod is Sarah, you're probably a little bit better off. So your goal here is really to get Daken on 3, because on 4, you can play another 3-drop and a Destroy card, or another 3-drop and that shard. And then what you're trying to do is get Nimrod down on 5, and on turn 6, you're playing 2 of Carnage, Venom, and Deathlock. If you just have 1, you can go Venom and Surfer just fine. It's going to move tons of power on the board in really unpredictable ways for your opponent. Everything here is mid-range big, so it's really hard to answer it, again, except for Armor and Cosmo. Armor and Cosmo are this deck's absolute freaking nightmare. But short of those 2 cards, you have a marvelous amount of answers to basically everything else by just keeping everything under the Shang threshold. Because your Daken's going to get to 8 power until that very last turn. Your Broods are 4, right? But they add up to a lot of power. Your Nimrod doesn't care about it. Polaris is 7. Polaris is the swing card here to me, I think, by the way. Polaris could pretty easily be Sarah if you really want to go all in, but now I feel like I'm short on 3s. So it's a give and take at this point. Nova should be really good. Bucky should be really good. These are just ways to get power on the board and maintain some control, like a 2-6, a 3-8, right? Carnage can be a 2-6, 2-8. Wolverine is like a 2-4, 2-6 by the end of the game. These are just really, really good power tempo cards. When you combine with the power and tempo of Surfer, you have something here. This is one of my favorite builds. The card I'm not sure about here is Mystique. Mystique is here because I want to be able to do the Wongbo real bad. So this Daken deck is fundamentally all about abusing Collector and Morbius. So Morbius and Collector, if you haven't seen the list, can get quite big with Swarm, especially if you Mystique that Morbius. I want to lean all the way into that with some extra discard. Colleen Wing is perfectly fine discard here. Gambit is perfectly fine discard if you drop them on Wong. They will drop a Miramasa Shard and a Swarm, and you are off to the races. You have the standard discard package, right? You can easily go Morbius into Colleen. Colleen discards a Swarm. Now you've got Morbius into Collector into like a Colleen, right? And then you can drop Dracula. Oh wait, I'm messing up my math. Morbius into Colleen to get a couple Swarms, into Dracula, into MODOK, into Apocalypse. That playline is still there for you. That is the straight up main playline of most discard decks. It works just fine here. You'll still get your big Morbius. You'll still get your Colleen with your 6 power or more, 12 power worth of Swarms and everything else. You could also go Morbius into Mystique, right? Into Collector and Daken. No, Morbius into Daken, right? Into Wong, into Mystique and Collector, and then you can play your MODOK and just go to town. And if you don't get the double Wong Mystique, you can play Daken into that Wong on turn 5, along with a 2-drop, maybe even an immediate Colleen Wing, maybe a Collector. Collector's immediately going to get 2 powers that way, and then your last turn is MODOK. Or your last turn could even be, if you get the full Wong Mystique, Gambit, and you can wipe their board if you have Swarms in hand. Then you don't especially have to worry about power, right? So let's say another playline would be something like Morbius into Daken, into Dracula, into Wong Mystique, into Collector Gambit. And then you just go to town. As long as you have a Swarm in hand for the infinite discards, you're going to wipe their board. All of these plays work really well. They pump up that Dracula huge, so when Dracula chucks that, pump up that Apocalypse huge, so when Dracula chucks it, it works great. Remember that Modok and Gambit can be last turn plays here, unlike most other versions of the deck, especially if you get the Wong Mystique combo going. And if they don't have Cosmo or the right answer for that, and in a Conquest game you'll know that for sure, you're really set. This, just straight up, I don't love discard. This seems so fun. This is the deck I'm planning on starting with. This is the deck I'm playing on ladder when the season resets to get a feel for how Daken works. This is our boy J-Hugs deck. You got to check out J-Hugs Plays. He has been playing this version of Move. I removed one card, Dagger. I removed Dagger for Daken because, well, why not, right? Like, I've already got I can play Hulkbuster on multiple men. I can play Hulkbuster on Phoenix Force. Now I can play Hulkbuster on Daken. And I've just got all these different ways to get these huge power cards and move everything around. So you want to basically look. The main game plan of this deck is to go something like skip, multiple men, Carnage or Venom, Phoenix Force, drag 8 power all over the board, right? But as you're dragging 8 power all over the board, you've just got Carnage sitting there, you've just got Daken sitting there, right? So like turn 5, you can drop Daken, right? And then turn 6, you can just kill a Muramasa Shard, right? Like turn 6, you can drop a Carnage on it, right? Like move things around, punch a Vulture if you want. You can drop a Carnage and punch a Vulture, right? Like all of these plays should work really well. You can just drop Heimdall and move your power around. You should have basically infinite move options. It's going to be hard and take practice, learn the right one. I say this every time I feature this deck because this is the second time I've talked about this deck. Don't feel like you have to Heimdall very often. Just dropping America Chavez is better. But now, if you have Daken on the board, doing something to kill Daken that's an extra 4 power, right? That's half of Heimdall. That's that's 40% of America Chavez. And whatever else you do probably gets you the rest of the way to that full power of that card. So like consider what you're doing, right? Consider how much power you're adding to the board and where and why. Next we have Death Hulk. This is the second one I'm going to try because I think it's bonkers. This deck is about getting a bunch of 1-drops out. Ideally, you can play Magic to make your turns a little better. Then you go Daken on 3, Moon Girl on 4. Hopefully you're copying Death or She-Hulk. If you've played Magic, you've got an extra turn, so you're going to skip turn 6 with this deck. You kill everything as best you can, and then you play a really cheap Death, a really cheap She-Hulk, and you can have an up to 16 power Daken. So if you've got 2 12 power She-Hulks, a 16 power Daken, and a couple 9 power, 2 12 power Deaths, a couple 9 power She-Hulks, and 2 16 power Dakens, you're going to win the game of Snap, right? Bucky is really good tempo here. You've got all this extra stuff that really works well to tempo your game out. Yondu helps cheapen all the opponent's stuff. Hood is great to kill, gives you an extra 1/6. That's another card that hitting with Moon Girl is phenomenal. Squirrel Girl alone is making Death a 5, right? So if you get Squirrel Girl and Yondu out, and then you can kill, then you can play Killmonger, your Death is basically free. That's a 2-cost Death, which is unbelievable. Now you're Moon Girling that, you're really, really set. There's a lot of ways to win with this deck. There's a lot of ways to put a lot of power on Daken. And again, don't feel like you have to. A 3/8 with the Tempo of Bucky, with the Tempo of Carnage, with the Temple of the Demon, with a double She-Hulk or a double Death is enough power. Don't go crazy trying to pump Daken up, but I want the upside here. These decks are all about upside. I think this version should work really, really well. We're going to see how much as the season turns over. Legion is everywhere. Legion is bad for Magic. That's why you're seeing less Magic lately. So if Legion remains everywhere, we're going to continue to see less Magic. So maybe this deck takes a little bit of hit. Maybe you have to play Moon Girl on 4 and skip 5 and then try and go off on 6. Should still work fine. Makes the Death part worse, but you should still be able to kill a couple Muramasa Shards, play a double She-Hulk, and play like a Carnage just fine. And if you have a Bucky out, that's still a lot of power. And if you've got a Hood out, that's still a lot of power. There's a lot of ways to win with this deck, and your opponent does not necessarily have answers for it because it's easy to throw a priority. The only card that when it's on the board, like everything's getting killed the turn it gets played except the Hood and Bucky, so be a little careful with them. But like even then, unless it's armor, Killmonger will do the job for the Hood, and Bucky is just sad, right? Like you'll live with a crappy Bucky. If you really feel the need, change it for Wolverine. I prefer Bucky. judge based on your pocket meta. This deck should be very cool. This is the number 2 deck I want to try because I think it's got a lot of cool play patterns, and I think it's a deck that didn't exist yesterday. And I'm a big fan of trying new decks that didn't exist before this moment. All right, final thoughts. You should buy Daken. You should always buy the Season Pass. We're going to get to Daken specifically. Season Pass and Intelligent Opening can give you 100% completion. I've got a video that explains how that works. Lauren, whatever, of Marvel Snap Zone has done the math like 6 different times. The most anyone has ever found to have a series complete, with obviously some time for things to show up in caches, a series complete with this new system, the most anyone who has actually done math has come up with is $60 a month. That's not cheap, right? But if you play literally any other mobile game, that is the cheapest you're going to get for a complete collection of anything, for a complete game. If you're playing an MMO, right? $60 a month is a lot. I think you can do it for 10. Lauren's checked that math like 15 times. $10 a month of the Season Pass, you can have 100% completion. You can own every card in the game. It means you're not buying variants. It means you're spending your gold that you get from the Season Pass on Token Tuesdays and similar bundles. But if you do that, you're good. You also get from the Token Tuesdays, from the Season Pass, 1,500 extra gold. That is counting the gold from the weekend missions, but also there's 900 in the Season Pass. You get 300 extra credits and plus 4 variants. So the variants that you're not buying with your gold, you're making up for in the 4 free variants here, because you weren't really going to have enough for 4 variants worth of gold anyway. The Season Pass cards in slow release, just for the ease of use, I put them 2 per line. Miles and Black Panther. Miles is or was a meta card in the Stature Hawk decks. It's also never been a higher series card, so it's a little bit of an outlier compared to the others, but it's a good card. Black Panther's in multiple meta decks. It was meta when released. It went away for a while. Now it's like a regular card in rampless. It's still sometimes in negative list. It's still a really good card. It's like a B- card. It's not like meta defining, but it's still a really good card. And there have been times it's been higher. We've got Surfer, who released as an A+, right? When it was a 3-0, now it's a 3-2. It's an A-. It's still one of the best cards in the game, one of the most consistent decks in the game. People hit Infinite with it every season. Lauren, whatever, hit Infinite with it last season. Zebu is, like, I think the best card in the game, bluntly, even after nerf. Season Pass card. MODOK wasn't good as soon as he was released and wasn't good when Spider-Ham was a 1 cost, but is good again now. Play MODOK, you won't be sad. Discard is really powerful. You see Spider-Ham, you retreat. I think it's because of that, it's a better ladder deck than a Conquest deck, but MODOK is really good. Released at like a C, but it's probably up to like a B+. It's the only card in the game that does what it does. It's also the key enabler for those really cool Hella decks that are all over the place. Nimrod released as a fine card. It was bad. The instant came out like a D, honestly. And then it slowly but surely became the preeminent Galactus list when Galactus was good, but not great. Then when Galactus was great, it fell out. Galactus got nerfed, and now it ended up finding that Shuri deck that we're going to talk about later. Nimrod is a very, very good card. Probably B+, A- again level. So these Season Pass cards are all, so far, really great, right? Hitmonkey as a 2-0 didn't have an immediate meta because of Sandman, but it was still like a B- card. Then it went up to like A-ish level when Bounce came into the meta and Double She-Hulk was the thing to do. So Hitmonkey is a fantastic card that you should have bought. It got nerfed into like a B-, but like, I don't know, it had 3 months of being in the best deck in the game and being a key cog. Nebula has been up and down, like largely thanks to Kitty, but it basically made Lockdown an archetype, and I think you might have played a Lockdown deck here or there since Nebula released. I think it's a B+, not S tier like many expected. There's more ways, and they've put more ways into the game since it was announced to get in and out of lanes. Move got better, Jeff got more prominent, and of course Kitty Pryde kept it down. But the card is still fantastic. It's still very often like a 1-5, and that is absolutely nothing to sneeze at. Ghost Spider and Phoenix Force were the last 2 Season Passes. You can say both were disappointing, but Second Dinner took made moves to show that they would not accept their season pass cards to be below par and buffed them both. Ghost Spider became a 1/2 so they can get its ability off as a control piece. It is a beautiful control piece right now. If you're not playing it as a way to mess with opponents, you should strongly consider it. It's also a really, really great way to get a lot of power. You go through a lot of hoops to get 10 power on turn 4, right? Like you have to deal with a Typhoid Mary or a Void or something. Well, Ghost Spider and Vulture will do that job for you in a nice simple 2-card combo that's 10 power, right? Like in one lane. That's Shang-Chi proof. Good luck to your opponent dealing with it. Phoenix Force gets slept on. The top 5 is going to be a look at the cards of this last season and where Phoenix Force ranks. Kind of surprised me. People don't like it. The card's still really good. People just didn't really like the play pattern very much because it was combining both move and destroy, and people found it awkward. Deck was still really good. Deck was still really good. If you want that to proof that we're still discovering new and interesting things to do with Phoenix, check yesterday afternoon's video on this channel. I did 2 Phoenix Force decks like nothing you've ever seen before. They're based on Negasonic, and the combo of those 2 cards. Phoenix Force is always going to be a cool card, and the more destroy stuff comes out, like this season, the cooler Phoenix Force is going to get. I'd even argue that Ghost Rider and Phoenix Force are the weakest since Panther, but everything else has found its place like at the top of the meta, and I don't think Phoenix Force is that far. Now, I think that Daken is right now, I don't think anything is as good as Zebu. I don't think it's as good as Release Surfer or Release Hitmonkey. I think it's the 4th best season pass card ever, and it has the potential to end up in a similar realm to Hitmonkey. You should absolutely buy this card. You're getting potential 100% completion with smart opening. You're getting a ton of in-game resources, and you're getting what I think is the 4th best card ever that you're going to have to open eventually anyway, and it's probably going to take more expensive resources than the $10 if you count it out over time to get it. Just buy the card. Next is Spotlight card Galactus. This is our Series 5 on reveal. If you're winning this location and this is your only card here, destroy all other locations. You've been playing long enough to want Galactus. You know what Galactus used to be. 6/2, where it didn't, where you didn't have to be winning, right? It was insane. It was insane. Galactus is mostly worth it. The reason Galactus is mostly worth it, not entirely worth it, is it's not a meta deck right now. It's a deck you can get infinite with. It's a deck you can get infinity borders with, but it's not going to be easy, and you have to love the playstyle. Unless you are sure you love the playstyle, I don't suggest you get Galactus while he's not a meta card. However, because his value will never depreciate, he will always have that value. His value will be retained. We don't know when he's going to be in Spotlight Cash again, which means that if you want him, he's going to be 6,000 tokens. Period. He's not going to be anything cheaper. So that makes him worth it, like almost by definition. So if you really want Galactus, you have to open for him here. You know you're going to get your values worth. I consider 4 Spotlight Caches about the equivalent of 6,000 tokens. The second you open him, stop. We'll get to more on why as we go. But Galactus is mostly worth it. This is Alex 6SC's Galactus. He hit infinite with this deck, from 90 to 100 with this deck. I think it's really cool, so I decided to highlight it. The play lines are relatively simple here. It does have Spider Hem and Null in it. If you don't have Null, do yourself a favor. You might not want to bother with Galactus. Spider Hem is here to help give you the information you need to be able to Galactus, as are Daredevil, because that tells you with your Daredevil, and then if you Electro on 3, right, you know whether to Galactus or not on the next turn. You know whether that Galactus is going to win. With this deck, you are going to be vulnerable to Shang-Chi. There is nothing, literally nothing really to be done about that once you've killed things, right? Well, I guess there's one thing to be done about that. But if you've killed enough things, and Galactus has to be winning the location, so you're very likely to be having priority, right? If you have priority, you play Null or Death, they play Shang, you're in trouble. Period. That's not a great look. You can hope that you've killed little enough that your Null isn't huge, so that if your Death gets Shang, your Null gets that power and then pops up to enough power. That is one way to survive. If you have killed enough, you can also hopefully play Death and Professor X. If you can play both Death and Professor X into the lane with priority, that's going to be 15 power you're adding to the lane that is completely protected because Professor X works as Shang-Chi protection. The other way to do this is to go the classic Wave Galactus Spider-Man. If you go Wave Galactus Spider-Man, you're very likely. Shanga's here for when you somehow don't have priority and you know they're going to drop something big and you didn't see your null, right? You can drop Shanga Death just fine, clear out the game, and you've got your classic, sorry, I started to say this and then got distracted. Wave Galactus Spider-Man just closes out the game. There's nothing your opponent can do about it. The game is over. You can then play whatever you want, drop a Shang-Chi, drop a Death, drop a null, perfectly safe, and the game is won on your side. Next spotlight card is Nimrod. This is a Series 4 card, a former Season Pass card. When this is destroyed, add a copy to each location. Okay, sure. When this is destroyed, add a copy to each location. That is, if it's destroyed once, at least doubles its power, and then from then on, it goes higher. This card has really, really great synergies with all the great destroy stuff we spoke of earlier, to the point where Nimrod is a borderline buy if you really like these decks. So here's my thought about Nimrod and why I'm leaning no. Series 4 card get up tokens, right? I'm going to stop saying that every 2 seconds, but it's really important to drill through your head. Series 4 cards are much worse than Spotlight caches and much better with tokens. But, Nimrod is great. But, this whole season has a ton of destroy stuff. What does that mean? That means that smart players are going to start packing Cosmo and Armor. And if your opponent is running both Cosmo and Armor, your Nimrod deck is dead meat. I think Nimrod was worth buying kind of last month, but this month I expect the meta to evolve in such a way that the card is not as good as it has been in the past. However, if you're dying to play Nimrod, this is, I think, the best Nimrod deck in the game. It is. So the hood can be lots of things, and the hood will very soon be X23 in this deck. You basically want to use your early plays to set up Shuri Nimrod. Iron Lad can be a backup Shuri or a backup Nimrod, as the case may be. At that point, you start playing ping pong, right? You drop a Deathlock in one location and a Venom in another, a Carnage in one location and a Deathlock in another, etc., etc. Venom is your priority because it keeps the power. And then all the other stuff you've played incidentally along the way, your Buckies, your Hoods, your Wolverines, get destroyed in the process and get nice and big. And as they get destroyed, you win the game. If you've managed to get a bunch of extra energy early or there's an extra turn in the game, you can even drop Destroyer after you've ping-ponged Nimrod a bit to basically almost fill the board, leaving you basically one little spot to drop a Death. It's a super simple deck. I personally like America in this deck because I really want my Shuri Nimrod combo, and I want it before turn 6, right? Like, it's not a good combo if I see it turn 5 and turn 6. So I really, really do like America in this deck. This deck struggles a little bit more because of all the Rock Slide in the meta, because your Iron Lad is now more likely to Rock Slide, which decreases your Shuri and Nimrod options, but it's still absolutely sick. Like, it's a great deck, as long as no one's running hard counters to it. You're dropping 12 power Nimrods all over the board on top of all your other power. Your Bucky, your Wolverine, your Demon that you can drop very often at the end of the game. So the Demon, just for the record, if you go last turn Deathlock Carnage or Venom Carnage, right, that's one extra energy, and that's when you drop the Demon. You end up killing the Hood in the process of killing everything else anyway, and you have an extra 6 power. There's no downside to it. Spider-Ham is, and I mean this seriously, the best card releasing this month. It's a Series 4 2/2 on reveal. Transform the highest cost card in your opponent's hand into a pig. I wrote big, excuse me, retaining its power and cost. That's what I get for not just copying and pasting. All right, Spider-Ham is great. It gives you card information. It takes away one of the best cards from your opponent's hands. If your opponents are running a lot of Death and Null, and they might be because of the new season, if your opponent's running a lot of Apocalypse and MODOK, welcome to your counter. That is the single biggest reason to open this card. It is, however, again, the token cheap, right? It's still not worth it because of the tokens. This is 3,000 tokens. If I was going to spend 3,000 tokens right now, it's a toss-up between, first Darkhawk, right? Like, Darkhawk's one of the best cards in the game. Then it's a toss-up between the Sabu. Okay, Darkhawk, Sabu. The Darkhawk package is the best package in the game. Then it's Spider-Ham and Legion in some order. I still don't think that you want to buy Spider Ham unless you're really early in the game. If you really want Galactus, fine. If like you're early into Series 3, right? And you've got 4 spotlight caches saved and you really want Galactus and you start opening and you get like the duplicate thing, protection doesn't matter because you're very likely to get a wild card and very unlikely to get the 1,000 tokens, then go for it, right? But generally speaking, I think you're better off saving for more like high ceiling cards, build around style cards than this, which is just like a really great filler card. Like, for example, I'd much rather have Jeff and save the caches for the start of September when we know Jeff is going to be in a season cache. This is right now the best Spider Ham deck in the game, and this is going to sort of demonstrate why you don't want to necessarily buy the ham. The best ham decks in the game have a lot of expensive cards. We've got 2 Series 5 cards in both Jeff and Lad. We've got Zabu and Darkhawk as Series 4 cards, along with Legion and Spider Ham. It's an expensive deck, right? This is the deck that came in second at the Conquerors event. It's an expensive deck. If you need all these cards, just adding Spider Ham to your collection probably isn't doing enough. So don't feel like you have to go out of your way to get ham that way. Take your time, be patient, collect cards when you need multiples at once, and that's the way to get ahead. And if you're like, oh, Spider Ham away from this deck, then even so, like, I'm not sure if I would open, because at that point, you're late enough into the game that you probably have some tokens, spend the tokens, save the caches. Yeah, there's also 1,000 cards that fit in that Spider Ham slot, right? Like, you could easily run America Chavez, for example, just fine instead of the ham. Don't feel pressured to grab ham. That is it for today. Hopefully, that is everything you could possibly want to know about both Daken and the Spotlight caches for the week. If there's anything else you'd like me to cover in these, please let me know in the comments. This will be the only video today because we have a stupidly huge podcast to record later tonight. We have the OTA, the hopeful balance changes coming later today from the patch. And we've got the roadmap. So there's a lot to discuss. So thank you so much for watching. We'll be back tomorrow morning. Hopefully these like 7 decks or so keep you settled for a day. We'll see you tomorrow for another Snap Take. Peace, everybody.